On this episode of AV Week, Amazon Alexa now for hotels. Are there too many end users at the Infocom show? And why we keep using iPads for control interfaces. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 356, recorded Friday, June 22nd, 2018. Comfort food.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by FSR and by Biamp and by Vadio, a leading manufacturer of professional PTZ cameras, Pro AV solutions, and UCC integration systems.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tom Albright. I am your host. With us to talk about the news and information that we have gathered for the week. First and foremost, her name is Alexis Labroy, and she is from Avitexture. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Absolutely. Alexis is a first-time guest, so you two boys be nice to her. Next up is my buddy and pal, Jeremy Caldera from the great city of Peoria, Illinois, and IAS Technologies. Welcome, sir.
Greetings, everyone.
Jeremy is just like right there to me, just north. And last but not least, Mr. Chris Netto from Barco, creator of all sorts of interesting hashtags, including AV in the AM. Welcome, sir.
Hi, everyone, and hi to you too, Tim.
Wow. If you're not watching the video, Chris shaved apparently for this episode, so I do appreciate that.
There you go. Got rid of the beard, man.
You look 10 years younger.
That wasn't the goal, but well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Bad accident with an electric razor happens.
Yeah. All right. So let's kick this off. This is our first show back in the studio after Infocom 2018. We actually have one story about that, but we're not going to inundate you with this. First and foremost, first story here is from TechCrunch. Amazon this week announced Alexa for hospitality. This customized system allows guests to access pool hours, housekeeping, room service, as well as quote-unquote smart hotel functions like adjusting the temperature. They're launching this initiative with Marriott, which is interesting because Marriott was actually also testing out Siri and Alexa devices. Jeremy, I want to start with you on this. Voice control is becoming more and more part of not just the residential part of AV, but also commercial. Amazon last November announced the initiative for Amazon in the boardroom. So the first question here, sir, is when are integrators and manufacturers going to start seeing Amazon as a competitor, or do they already?
I don't know that we're going to see them as a competitor or just a supplementary piece to the services that we provide and the offerings that we bring as integrators, right? It's been interesting because I've actually had some clients who have asked me for this before, and I know Crestron or whoever had implemented the original kind of go-to with Alexa, right? We never really successfully launched it because then the whole big security thing with IoT launched, right? Where everybody's all worried about Alexa listening to what you're doing. And then I've got some CEOs that said to me, absolutely not, I don't want that in my boardroom. So you're going to get the wide, gamut of what's the offerings are and what people want. But all in all, I look at it more as just a supplementary piece, not competition.
All right. Alexa, same kind of question, and not for nothing, but Jeremy brings up a good point about the security. So is security still going to become an issue, or are they still going to work their way in to both commercial and obviously residential?
Well, I think they are going to keep trying to work their way in for sure. And, some of the concerns that I have, definitely security, but some of the concerns I have about putting the Alexa into a hotel room are some of the things that other people talked about in that article. And that's, how do you turn it off if you don't want it on? How do you, do you log in and it knows all of your information? How would it work for individuals that are coming into the hotel? And how would it be secure? If it's recording everything, just waiting for you to say, Alexa, I need this or do this for me, then it's recording everything you're doing in that hotel room. So I'd like to hear more about, the rollout and that, how they're beta testing and, how that works with their guests. because they have some serious issues otherwise if they haven't taken all those things into account.
You make a very good point, actually, is how do you turn it off? Or could you ask for an Alexa free room, I guess, at some point down the road. It's a very good point. Mr. Netto, I'm going to take a little slight turn here. Chris works for Barco, manufacturer. They have a control platform called Overture. So go ahead and speak to that. But I also want to ask you a question that Amazon in general has disrupted a number of industries. Are they poised, or are they already disrupting the audiovisual industry?
Absolutely.
In what way?
Voice. Come on. We've talked about voice 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
We stood on a stage together, as a matter of fact, and talked about voice control, and 300 AV vendors or manufacturers, not manufacturers, but integrators that were sitting in the audience all looked at us like we had, that we were all green aliens from outer space.
That also is the presentation where I offered each and every one of them $100 if one of their clients didn't ask for voice in the next year.
Yeah.
Still haven't paid that.
Being labeled crazy is, kind of cool for a bit, but the fact is that this was coming. If you didn't think that this was going to happen, just call BlackBerry. Ask BlackBerry how they're doing.
That's unfair.
That is not unfair, man. That is a story where a corporate want turned into a corporate need. The iPhone was never designed for corporate email. Yeah. All right. And what did people do? They adapted. They developed things like Iron Port to get around. Maybe that's incorrect, but there are programs now that lock the phone so that it's secure for corporate internet and emails and stuff like that. There are ways to lock it down. If we haven't figured them out yet, we will. Are they competition to AV? If they're selling direct to an end user and to a corporate, I would put them in that category. Yes, we can work with them complementary. And to answer the question of how you did it, well, consider that we have somebody named Alexis and that we are talking about Alexa. I unplugged mine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I've had people tell me, I have a coworker who I work closely with, and they have an Alexa at their house.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're sitting around the dinner table and you're just talking about, oh yeah, I talked with this person today, or we had a meeting, and
it chimes.
It turns on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that, for me, would be an issue.
Exactly. From the end user perspective, we're now going to become sensory numb to it. You say the name, it dings in the background. We just continue talking, at least in my house, when we hear that. Yes, there are there's the doom and gloom conversation of, oh my God, it's recording. Oh my God, it's this. There's people that accept it. And we have to understand that there are people that accept that as the norm, right? Regardless of what our security people, our IT people are saying, I'm not saying it's right, but just understand that the power of the people or the consumer when Alexa is involved will win. It's just a matter of time.
Well, and not for nothing, but another phrase you should not utter is the organization that is the Audio Visual and Experience Association in front of an Amazon Echo, if you have the default name attached to it. Because as soon as I got back from the trip where they announced AVWeek, I was explaining to my wife the name change, and my Echo popped up. And it's a device. The device popped up and said, "Oh yeah, you want to talk to me?" No, I'm explaining something else. So, speaking of AVWeek and the Infocom show, this comes to us from Commercial Integrator. After the Infocom show was complete, social media turned its attention from the show and the products to the makeup of the attendees. Quote unquote from the article: how can AVWeek continue to keep its integrator members happy as it reaches out to bring in more end users? One of the reasons Infocom 2018 set the show's Las Vegas attendance record. They quoted Mr. Labusca, CEO of AVWeek, quote unquote, "We looked at who we are, who we want to be, and how we can elevate the value of this industry. That demanded we do something more than the Infocom show." So, Mr. Netto, as a manufacturer and a former integrator and former consultant, what exactly do manufacturers want and need at the show?
Well, there's always been that conversation of part of the reasons why people go to Infocom, if you're an integrator, consultant, manufacturer standing in the stands, is that you are selling a product to an end user, correct? Right? You're there because you need to see products that you somehow have to translate and take back to your customers. If end users are now attending the show, are we forgetting that people such as, Jeremy will invite, his top clients out there to show them the products firsthand? I know as a manufacturer that, my responsibility as a consultant liaison is working with consultants. There are consultants that call me prior to the show saying, hey, I need to book time at the booth because I am bringing customer XYZ who's, currently in the market for this. What am I going to do? I am going to set my booth up and get ready for customer XYZ to come in because you know what? That is the best place for them to do the side-by-side comparison. I mean, if they're looking for LED, if they're looking for projectors, right? If they're looking for big screen, big displays, a lot of that stuff is seen to believe. One of our products that we have, our big video wall, to be honest with you, it doesn't, PDF doesn't do it justice. You have to see it in person to understand what it does. So bringing the customer out and explaining to them, look, we don't have a demo facility, or Barco or the integrator may not have a demo facility or a working demo in Scottsdale, for example. How are you going to do this? You take them to the show. It's not that long of a flight, to be honest with you. If you're sending somebody from Arizona over there, you bring them in, you show them the device, you tell them, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we have. You're more than welcome. Obviously, you're going to look at the show floor, go see what everybody else has, right? And then come back and compare the difference. I mean, that's a great use of it for an end user. As a former end user, that's how I used to do it. When I was doing the pharmaceutical stuff, I would go to these sites. Not that I was being told by my integrators or being, going in as a consultant. I went as an end user, and it was a completely different show. For me, I went for the training, which is what the end users primarily are going to be there for, those tech managers, right? They're going for the training. They're going for the certification because one trip to an Infocom will allow you to get all those credits in hand. You may be able to renew a CTS if you're that hardcore and do, a Monday through Wednesday, a CTS spree or RU spree. But, on top of that, since you're there, you stay the extra couple days, you look at the products, you kick them around. It's your best. It's the best bet now as a manufacturer and people attend, at the show. I think the question and the arguments that were happening online, which I happen to see, was more of who's catering to what, right? For me, I like seeing end users there because I have a soft spot for them. I've kind of been there, done that, and that's what I needed. But maybe I'm the wrong person to ask. But it's more of a what the show is catering to is the question.
I look at this and I'm thinking to myself, who asked this question, right? Is this just commercial integrator asking the question, or did that come from somewhere else? Because I didn't even realize that this was an issue, to be honest with you, right? Mm-hmm. Of too many end users coming to Infocom. Like you said, I want to bring my end users to Infocom. I wish I could bring more of them to Infocom, right? I only bring I meet with or bring my top couple of clients, right? The ones that I do the most business with, because I can have a business case for that, right? Mm-hmm. But I'd love to bring everybody. I'd love everybody to come see all the new tech that I'm trying to show. Here we are as an integrator trying to explain to them what they're going to get and explain the technology when I can just show them, right? That's the easiest way to accomplish that, right? So, and from the AVWeek standpoint, right, I applaud them for embracing, everybody in kind of the new going forward way, right? It's only going to help integration as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and I would also bring up, Alexis, as we bring you in on this is not a new concept. Integrated Systems Europe, ISE, has been doing this for years. Now, ISE is a different show, and I get that, and don't email me because I understand you've got residential and you've got commercial in that one show. I understand that. But from a showrunner standpoint, they have consistently marketed and tried to get end users to that show, and we can define end users in several different ways. Mm-hmm. Chris and I are both former tech managers, right? That's where he and I both came from, and I agree with Chris that you need those folks there. Alexis, from your standpoint, is there too many end users? And again, however you want to define that.
I don't think so. And, I'm kind of with Jeremy, just trying to figure out where the question is coming from and why it's even a question at all. On one hand, I think that change for some people is hard, but it's not really a change. It's kind of a direction I think that we've already been going into, because end users buy from manufacturers, they buy from integrators, they buy from consultants. We all want to be in front of the end users, and we all want them to see the technology, and we want them to see, well, this is what I was thinking about, here, I can show it to you in person. To Chris's point, you need to see that Unicy in person, to be able to understand, all the ways that it works. So I don't really know where it came from. And, the other part of that conversation was there aren't enough local events that AVIXA, local regional events that AVIXA puts on. And what I said in the tweet, which I didn't realize that was going to turn into an article the next day, but what I said is, don't forget about the AVIXA Women events. Yeah. Don't forget about the, and I didn't say this, but I'll add to it. Don't forget about the Young AV Professional events. Don't forget about the events that AVIXA has in partnership with other distributors, with like Almo, for instance, where Infocom goes to those shows. So I think that was part of it too. And I don't know, I didn't understand necessarily where it came from. Could there be more local events, regional events? Sure. Let's work toward that. And but don't forget about the events that AVIXA actually is sponsoring, that they have a hand in, to meet integrators and end users and manufacturers and consultants and everybody in our industry, to meet them where they are. So I don't want us to forget about those too.
Can I add to that, Tim? Part of the thing that Alexis just raised, brought up a good point. There are their events. I think what the article was going to, and somebody who followed along and saw what happened on that stream of conversation, because at some point I think it actually started on a Sunday and it wheeled over into the week, and selective tweets were grabbed and may have been put out of context. But somebody went to the the AVIXA website and did not have the new schedule up to date. So the first thing is, well, it doesn't look like there's any scheduled events apart from the women's events, which are very well communicated online for the women in AVIXA events. But there were a lot more regional shows. There was a New York City event. There was a DC event. They were all over the place, and they were there.
Real quickly, before you finish that thought, there was also used to be, and this is years ago, and way back when I was still a tech manager, there were several what they call regional roundtables. Mm-hmm. I live in St. Louis. It is not the biggest market in the world, right? It's we have fallen from, I think in the early 2000s, we were market 15 or 16, and now we're market 25. So not the biggest town in the world.
You lost the football team.
And we lost a football team. Not a very good one, but but those are not there anymore. So I understand the consternation about the lack of regionalism. And, beyond the women the women of AVIXA ones and the young AV ones.
Yeah, and then there's a second part to this where I saw online where there was concern of how people talk to the end users. There was this back and forth about how, if an end user walked into a booth, how they were spoken to, and that it should be treated a little differently than somebody who walks in, because they're clearly, the one thing that we all can see is when you walk into a booth as a manufacturer, I know who an integrator is, who the press are, who whatever, by the color of their badge. Yeah. So an end user, that's easy to spot. So how do you talk to those people? There was a lot of, for lack of a better term, there was complaints about mansplaining. There's people that walk into the booth and need to, approach everybody like they don't know anything, right? So I don't know. I did not see it. But then again, I was that person who walked into the booth and needed to get certain types of questions. But granted, I did walk in with a bunch of flags attached to my booth at the time, at my on my badge at the time too, having a CTS and having this and being part of this committee and that and the other thing. So I just think it was an emotional reaction to a bad possible experience that somebody had that got overblown. But it's something that I'm glad that AVIXA did address.
Yeah.
I was really happy that Dave jumped in, and he had a couple of replies in his tweets, and Brad Grimes, and so I was happy to see that as well. That not only are we monitoring and looking at the tweets as they happen, but AVIXA is too. So they can see if there is a concern, they can kind of jump in and say, hey, we hear you, and this is what we think. And so I think that's great too.
And that happened fresh off of InfoComm, because that was a Sunday conversation that happened the Sunday right after InfoComm. There were still people on the show floor breaking down booths, and this conversations were starting to pop up. And a lot of people came with this fresh off their mind. When you hear the date, when you hear the numbers of people that were there, and then you start breaking down of who was end users, who was integrators, who was manufacturers. Yes, it could have been on paper a very successful show for AVIXA, right? Numbers wise, attendance wise, but there are going to be people that are going to question that, and as an organization, you have to be prepared to answer those type of questions. I can say that me as a manufacturer, we had a great show. We had a lot of people show up, and it was a good mix of people. At least from the badge scans that I'm seeing, is that it was a good mix of people that came to the booth, and we have a lot of follow-ups, whether it's me following up, not directly with an end user, but maybe following up with the integrator that's in that area, or in our case, a manufacturer's rep that maybe works with those people. So I'm kind of torn. I respect people's opinions, but at the same time, I can't say it's a bad thing overall, because I was that guy. So
yeah.
Some people just don't like change. They don't like to see any kind of change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The manufacturers that I talked to in the booths, they said that they liked some of the changes. So, I asked the question, there were also manufacturers that I walked into the booth with my integrator badge, and nobody said a word to me. So
that right there. And as we kind of wrap this up, I had two different end users, right? And I'll qualify them as end users. One was Bradford Ben, who works for a large institution, and Dawn Mead also works for a large institution. Both of them had end users badges, and they both had vastly different experiences, to Alexis's point. And it's not what you think. Bradford had issues with folks who didn't talk to them, right? Didn't come up and talk with him. Dawn, because I asked her directly, because I had Bradford on AVWeek from InfoComm first, and then I just asked Dawn based on Bradford's experience. And she said no. She goes, granted, as a woman in the industry, sometimes there is mansplaining, right? And there is things that happen, or you just don't get attention. Dawn, similar to Chris a couple of years ago, has several badges, has several flags, and she's a speaker, she's CTS, all this jazz. She had a vastly different experience where the majority of the booths that she walked into, they absolutely came up to her, talked with her, answered her questions. So I'm thinking that some of this comes down to the manufacturers, honestly, and some of their training. And neither one of them gave me manufacturers' names, so I don't know who needs improvement. But it may come back to training your people and saying, everybody's important, everybody's valuable. Answer questions and go up and see people.
Right. I wouldn't say it's because I was a woman that happened. I would just say it just happened, and I think it may be a manufacturer issue. There could be a lot of different issues for sure. Mm-hmm.
All right, last story here, and this will be fun because I'm a former programmer and I have strong opinions about iPads. So, from AV Magazine, iRoom's iPad docking stations are now available in the UK through RGB Communications. The agreement that they signed allows RGB Communications exclusive distribution rights for all of iRoom products in the UK. So, congratulations to RGB. Here's the question, though, and Alexis, I'm going to start with you. Why do we keep installing iPads as control system interfaces?
We install what the client wants. I mean,
tell me that.
Not everything. You know, we try to offer direction, we offer suggestions, we consult. But if this is something that the client, you know, we talk about the end user's experience. And we talk about trying to make things as easy for them as possible. Now, there's pros and cons, obviously, to using an iPad or tablet and some sort of tablet instead of a manufacturer's control panel technology. But when a client, we want to encourage user adoption. We want them to use the system. And if that's the one thing that's going to help them use the system, it's an iPad and that's what they're used to using all day, then I don't think I'm going to try to talk them out of it just so that I can sell them a touch panel that's 2 or 3 times the cost.
Okay, I'll give you that. Mr. Caldera, same kind of question. Why do we keep using iPads and tablets?
I don't know. I hate them. I really do. I mean, I love the docking station stuff. Like the iRoom panels are great because some of them you can get the docking stations that are PoE. They hardwire them into the network as opposed to using the Wi-Fi, which is typically my biggest problem. Because what I'm finding is even in a lot of my corporate environments, the Wi-Fi and the wired connections, two totally independent. They're separate. Getting the two to talk to each other can be a nightmare when you're dealing with IT because sometimes they leave their Wi-Fi open to the public, right? And they don't want it to touch the internal stuff. So that's always been my biggest concerns. So I like the docking stations because they fix that. I mean, all in all, though, you still got to buy the app. And depending on what manufacturer it is of the big players, it's $100 or it's a couple $100, right? You still got to program it, right? So I'm still paying a programmer to write the GUI for it. But people are just used to the iPad interface. Like she said, like Lexa said, that's what they want. That's what we got to do. I don't know. Like I said, if you can use these docking stations and get them wired, I'm a little bit more okay with them. But I mean, it's still another third-party device that could potentially not be supported when I have a tech problem. When I'm calling tech support, oh, it's Apple's problem. No, it's the developer's problem. Whatever, So I have mixed feelings about it, but I don't think it's going away anytime soon. That's for sure.
All right. Mr. Netta, we'll end with you. I mentioned this. We were talking about Barco and their control system platform. You guys primarily live on mobile devices and stuff. Overture does. Mm-hmm. So is this an issue? Or should we all just kind of get on with the change of moving on to more a mobile friendly interface?
Get on with it. Get on with the change. I mean, iPads are comfort food for the people that are sitting home. It's the mac and cheese of AV nowadays.
iPads are comfort food.
Oh yeah. They're not scared to touch a button on an iPad. They know those iPads. They know those apps. It's a big bowl of mac and cheese sitting at waiting for them when they walk into that conference room. I mean, that's what you got to look at, right? They're intimidated by other things. Not to knock on any other, manufacturer, what they're doing or what they're developing or the products that they sell. There's an intimidation factor. That is the root of conference room, adoption. Is that people, even if you put just one big button on there that says go, they will be afraid to touch that. You know what, though?
I'm gonna completely agree with you because here I'm still selling touch panels when I can, but I'm making my programmer make the user interface look more like an iPad, right? Because exactly that point, right? It gets my reliability, but the user adoption is much higher.
Yep. So you're left with this weird, it's the little, devil and the little angel on each side of your shoulder. Which way are you going to turn? You can't make a right decision, but you're going to lean towards what is going to work, right? The selling a system to one person one time is one thing. You want to be able to go in and provide a technology that they're going to embrace, that they're going to love, and that they're going to be repeat buyers. We talk a lot about recurring revenue and stuff like that. But I tell you, if you were to go to somebody and say repeat revenue or reoccurring revenue, what's the difference? You want to continue buying product. You want to continue selling your services. It's that customer who was super satisfied with the fact that you gave them an iPad. If that is the reason why they're happy and that they're doing happy dances and clapping all the way, so be it. Take an iPad, take an iPort, an iBeam, or whatever it is that you need to attach to it. If you can come to that middle ground, make that happen, man, people are going to be happy. Right. As a programmer, that your one goal was a one-button press. Your holy grail was people happy off of just that one thing that you did, because they were going to come back. They were going to invest in your GUI, because your GUI is what sold that room. They don't care the brand speakers. They don't care the type of monitors, man. Unfortunately, we do. We're tech heads. We're gear heads. That's what we want to do. We want to be able to say, look at that badass monitor on the wall. You like that? That's 4K, blazing colors. They're like, it does great with Excel. That's awesome. Come on, man. I mean, there's one thing to deal with the fantasy world. There's another, there's another reason why we're in the business, is that it's in the real world, right? So in the real world, in a huddle room, in a room that just grew out of that webcam and a speakerphone on a table, now you start talking about a more integrated solution. If putting an iPad is the reason why they're going to love that room, I'll give you 2, man. Whatever. Make it happen.
That could be a good place to stop. All right. Thank you all so much. Mr. Caldera, thank you, sir.
Oh, no problem. Glad to be on.
How do people find you if they are so inclined?
Company website's iastechnology.net, and my Twitter is @Jeremy_Caldera.
All right. Very good. Mr. Neto, sir, always good to have you. How do people find you and or Barco?
Well, you can find Barco at barco.com. You can find Barco on Twitter at Barco, which is not me, it's Barco. I'm Chris_Neto on Twitter. You can find me all over the internet. I do encourage the people that are listening to this podcast to follow you, because you will say not to follow me. So, and you're an all right guy, man. I think we've hung out enough that I can say that. So
I do. Okay.
And follow and obviously follow the people that are here on this podcast as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very, very smart people, smarter than me and you, Tim. Just want to point that out.
That doesn't take a whole lot, actually, to be smarter than you and me. Alexis, thank you so much. You've been awesome to have, and like I said, this was Alexis's first time. How do people find you or AVTexture?
Thanks, Tim. You can find me at Alexis LeBroy on Twitter. And AVTexture is at avtexture.com. That's AV for architecture.
All right, very good. Chris is right. Don't follow me on the Twitters. At this point, there is roughly 4 weeks before the Bears are out of the playoffs. So that's probably what I'll be talking about. But go by the website, if you would, please, AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv. You will find programs like this and a host of others. We have 2 weeklies. One is AVWeek. Obviously, you're listening or watching to this one. We also have one that covers the residential market, hosted by Matt Scott. That comes your way every Wednesday. Tons of monthlies looking at education and marketing and social media and control systems and all that jazz. So check all of those out. Also, we're doing our second webinar. Actually, Jeremy was on our first one talking about AV over IP. We're doing another one July 24th, looking at control and automation and also data analytics and how all that kind of comes together. So check that out as well. All that and more, and at AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week.